podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
Final whistle has just gone in the home game versus Pafos. It's Chelsea 1, Pafos 0 in arguably one of the worst games of football we've probably seen all season. Now, there'll be those that are saying, we've won the match, it's job done. But unfortunately, this isn't a Chelsea team that is flying, full of confidence, scoring loads of goals, creating loads of chances. Basically, we're seeing the form of Enzo Maresca when he eventually lost his job. And at the moment, I don't see a change in formation. I'm seeing the same players play the same average standard every single week. Now, Pafos came with a game plan to sit basically two banks of five and a goalkeeper. And they said to Chelsea, come and break us down. They've obviously done their homework because Chelsea, as we know, seriously struggle to break down anybody with a low block. And I've said this before, it's not just an Enzo Maresca or Liam Rosenior problem. This goes back years. Even when Tuchel was in charge, we struggled at times to break down low blocks. It's a Chelsea problem. And even though I don't like watching it from a fan's perspective, they came with a game plan and they nearly pulled it off. And we're talking about a team from Cyprus that has, got no heritage in Europe or even domestically, really, just a bang average side. And Chelsea's superstars that have, been assembled for $1.5 billion just knocked it around like it was a playground park match, and there was no urgency, there was no real flair, no real skill or excitement. It was drab to the point of, I fell asleep at one point, and just very uninspiring. I'm, if I'm honest, I'm a bit saddened. I'm just a bit saddened as the way it's all going, and Chris may have a different perspective on it, but I think the longer it's going on, watching this Chelsea team at the moment, I'm just feeling less and less inspired about the way we're playing. I said last week against Brentford, we need a victory above anything else, but we need a performance, and we didn't get a performance at all. And tonight, even though Chelsea may have won the game 1-0, you expect more. And it's difficult sometimes when teams come with players and they're refusing to kind of move outside of their 18-yard box and what have you. But it's down to you to know that from the start and be like, right, we have to come up with a game plan that gets them moving away from their 18-yard box. And anybody, even if you just started watching football last week, could have told you that Pafos were going to come and do this. And we had absolutely zero ability to get in behind them. Where's the overlapping wing at fullbacks? Nowhere to be seen. Esteval would have been great to have started because when he came on, he was a real shining light, a shining beacon. But once again, Pedro Neto gets another start, and quite frankly, he's just not up to it. He's just not playing well at all. And he keeps getting starts in this Chelsea team, and I think he just needs dropping altogether at the moment, quite frankly. Again, I didn't think Garnacho was that bad on the other side. I've said this a few weeks now where I think that Garnacho's outplaying Neto and he keeps coming off, which is staggering to me. But nothing seems to be changing. We made some half-time substitutions this week, which we haven't done probably under Enzo Maresca for maybe a little while. But other than that, what did we see? A similar formation, a similar team, some decent players and bang average players. We've seen both goalkeepers tonight. I've just seen nothing really, nothing to inspire me. I'm just concerned that we're really losing our identity. And people might say, well, what was our identity? It was basically players like Didier Drogba who could bring a ball down on a sixpence from a long ball from Peter Cech every so often. We've turned into a team that just wants to play 5-yard passes everywhere they go. There's no creativity. There's no one that's prepared to go, do you know what? We are going to go long here, or we are going to play a cross-field pass. We are going to just, you know what, for a 5-minute spell, we're going to cross everything into the box and put their back four, 2 central defenders and goalkeeper under pressure. It's just passing in front, go back to Badia Chile and Fofana. They pass it back to Caicedo. We pass it back to them. It goes wide. It goes back to the wingers. It goes back to the fullback. And it's robot football. And I just don't see where it's changing. It hasn't changed in months under Maresca. And again, I'm not having a go at Liam Rosini here, but it's not changing under him, and it hasn't changed at all. That performance tonight was turgid again, woeful, really, really poor. And again, I'm still not going to judge Liam Rosini based on that. He's won 3 matches out of 4. And people might say, well, that's a good start, but one of them was Charlton, one of them was Pafos, and one of them was Brentford. And the only other game that we have played was Arsenal in the League Cup, when we were completely outplayed and could have lost by 4 if we weren't careful. So he's come into a run of games where he's got some victories, but I just don't see any kind of form whatsoever. And where is it going to pick up from? You know, we've got some games coming up which on paper look winnable, but, you know, Palace look a team completely out of sorts and in turmoil. But I'm not backing Chelsea to beat Palace at the weekend by any means, because we struggled to break Brentford down and could have been 2-0 down before we scored. And I just don't see how Chelsea pull this around. They're going to need an awful lot of luck, if you ask me. And the way the club now, it seems to be being run. We've got a player in Sarr that's on loan at Strasbourg, who we already own, a central defender that's just played AFCON and played pretty well by all accounts, and has led Senegal to a championship. And we're looking to bring in a defender for 50 million quid who no one's ever heard of. And then tonight we're linked with a 17-year-old boy again who I've never heard of. And it's just, we keep buying players that no one's ever heard of. And it's not going to change the outcome of this side. It's not going to move the needle where you go, oh, that's a player that's actually going to improve us and that's going to help the side. And I just don't know where we are as a club. I feel we seem completely lost, and we used to be the ones that used to go and bully sides and have a big physicality about us. And, you know, teams hated playing against us because we were strong, we were ugly, you know, we would kick the crap out of people. We could also pass it, we could go short, we could also go direct and long, we could go in behind, and we have match winners like Eden Hazard, etc. We had people that could do these things, and now we just seem a team of basically 2-touch merchants that only want to play the ball safe all the time. And there were just so many disappointing performances tonight. I thought, again, if Reece, I can only assume he's still ill, because Reece James has just played worse than he did at the weekend, which is scary. He was poor at the weekend and he was dreadful tonight, absolutely dreadful. I thought Fofana was really poor, even though they didn't have a lot to do at the back. I thought he still made plenty of mistakes and he gave the ball away a lot. I'm not loving Malo Gusto turning up in the number 10 position all the time. Again, it doesn't sit well with me. He's an outside flying fullback, and that's about all he is. I thought Enzo Fernandez sort of did bits and pieces, and he played quite well in patches, but he gave the ball away a lot again. And he picked up yet another booking for dissent right at the end of the game, which is completely ridiculous against a tight side who haven't even really had a shot at goal all night. And you still managed to get yourself booked for dissent, which is just a problem for Chelsea. Caicedo had a fairly easy night. He battled well. He scored the goal, which is really big for Chelsea. It kind of keeps them gunning for that top 8 position, even though I think it's possibly a long shot, but it still keeps them sort of pressing towards that number. But yeah, I thought he had probably his best game for a while, but again, Pafos weren't very good, so it wasn't hard to be good tonight, really. You look at the forward, I mean, Liam Delap, I think we bought a bum. I'm now starting to think we bought a bum. He's terrible. He's terrible at the moment. There's no other word for it. He doesn't create chances for himself. He doesn't create chances for anybody else. He doesn't link the play. He doesn't hold the ball up. He doesn't have any shots. His shots that he does seem to have are really poor, weak. He's having shots that you kind of know when someone's completely out of form and confidence, that he just sort of he shoots when it's never on, and you think, what are you doing? This is really, really weird. And yeah, he's a real worry for me at the moment. I don't see a player in him at all. I thought when we bought him from Ipswich, we were getting a really decent striker, someone that could really lead the line and bully teams and help us go to the next level. But at the moment, he looks way worse than Nicholas Jackson, like a mile off Nicholas Jackson. And he's going to need to produce an awful lot of good performances to kind of even get in the conversation of being like a player that can score 5 goals in his Chelsea career, let alone 5 goals in a season. I mean, I don't know what he is. He doesn't affect the game at all. You know, it's almost like he got sent off or booked or a few times early in his Chelsea career, and now he doesn't want to kind of even do that. He's a pointless player. And before I forget, I'm gonna kind of keep it there. I haven't spoken much about the game tonight. I'll leave that down to Chris to maybe go through a few things. I'm just, not feeling it today. Is Bruno Cueva, the set piece guy that we kept from the Enzo Maresca era? He needs sacking. He needs sacking tomorrow. His ability to come up with ideas from corners is absolutely shocking. I thought it was shocking under Maresca, and now under Maresca we would do things like we take a short corner every single time and end up in the midfield or back at the centre half, or even last week we ended up at Rob Sanchez's feet, which I thought was actually laughable. And ever since Maresca's left, our only tactic seems to be, let's try and clip it to the front post and get a header. Now, there's going to be people saying, well, Joe, we scored from that corner tonight, so what are you talking about? We had about 15 corners, and we got one that went right. And I'm embarrassed for him. He's got no clue what he's doing. We're paying this man probably hundreds of thousands of pounds to come in and tell someone how to take a corner. It's fucking ludicrous that footballers nowadays can't make decisions for themselves. Why can't Reece just go over to the corner? If he thinks there's a short one on, play a short one. If he thinks there's a runner coming in, play the runner. It's like we have to set everything up like it's so staged and pre-planned. It's embarrassing. And this isn't just a Chelsea thing. This is a football thing in general. It's like when Alex Ferguson was winning Premier League trophies and FA Cups and things for Man United. He did it on a whim of like attack, and we're gonna hit you fast and we're gonna smash you in the mouth. And now it's like no, we must have a slow build up. We can't just see something and play it. No, that's not on. That's not in the game script. So we need to wait, set it up. No, not yet. Set it up. Right, now he's in place. Now we can go. And there's no element of surprise at all. And it's completely and utterly one-dimensional. Yeah. Chelsea had a few shots from distance tonight, but again, creativity-wise, really non-existent. Our best bit of play was probably when Big Baddy Shield did a little Cruyff turn into Esteval's feet, and we got in behind them for the first time the entire night, but Esteval's shot was blocked by the defender. And he was the only bright spot for Chelsea, was Esteval. He came on and looked a brilliant play. He looked superb, and once again, he looks like a player that's going to be really, really good for Chelsea if we can keep him, because again, if Chelsea end up wafting around the league in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th position and going nowhere and hoping to get Champions League every single season, there's no way that he's going to be at the club, and nor will Cole Palmer, quite frankly, because I just don't see how Chelsea's form is going to pick up from here. We're looking at, yes, again, on the face of it, it's 3 wins out of 4, but we need to kind of put some perspective on those wins as well. And I'm just really, really concerned that the club is falling away from where it once was, which was a great club, competitive, would smash teams in the mouth, fought for everything. And now we just look quite weak, timid. Everyone goes down holding their arms and legs and their face and their shins and knee and bloody hell, any part of their body. They get a scratch and they're all on the floor rolling around. And I just think it sends a really bad message. It just shows that you're like a bit feeble, quite frankly. Now, I know that's Liam Rosenior's first Champions League game for Chelsea, but Yeah, the standard of team is going to go up, and we have a really tough game against Napoli next week. And I would really like to see this team take the handbrake off and actually go at a few sides. But unfortunately, I just don't think we're good enough offensively. I think we've got some fairly bang average players, and the ones that are good aren't playing enough or they're injured. Cole Palmer's injured, not himself, and Estefao isn't getting enough game time, in my opinion. And we're having to rely on players like Malo Gusto playing in the 10, or Jamie Gittins, the competition winner, or Liam Delap, the big baked potato, to put some kind of performance together. And quite frankly, none of them are up to it. Chris, it's over to you, mate. I'll see what you made of it, but I honestly think that was a shocking game of football, and 90 plus minutes that I won't get back.
I won't lie, I waited until the morning to record this one because I think similarly to Joe last night, I was just a little bit uninspired after that game and frankly didn't know really what to say about it because it was a dogged, dull watch, wasn't it? I think you could put it. It was not easy watching at all, and I don't know if I even celebrated when the goal went in. It was just sort of relief, really. Because it kind of felt like it was coming, but at the same time, the longer it went on, you kind of felt like maybe we're not going to get this. And yeah, it was a tough evening, really. Where to start? I think I'll start actually not going to go into a huge amount of specifics about the game because, to be honest, there's not a huge amount to say, is there? But I'll talk about the biggest bugbear for me, and I know a few others watching the game, which is our use of fullbacks. Joe mentioned it there, and when Maresca left, we did obviously a podcast talking about, the change and how we felt about it and what was next. And the biggest thing that I sort of took away from it was I was just hoping that I'd start enjoying watching Chelsea again. The style of football under Maresca, for the majority of the time, there were exceptions, but for the majority of the time was pretty unwatchable and frankly just quite dull. And we had a little glimpse, didn't we, in that second half against Man City under McFarlane of, all right, this is what it looks like when you take the handbrake off, let the fullbacks get forward and have a real go at a team. And we had our moments in that game. And of course, right at the death, Malo Gusto goes running down the right, puts the cross in, we get our equaliser. But it just felt like, football isn't rocket science. If you let players play to their strengths, it can actually make it a lot more enjoyable to watch. That's kind of what I came away from that game thinking. And then when you looked at what Liam Rosenior had done in France, in Strasbourg, I thought, do you know what? We talked about it, this idea of using wing-backs and using the fullbacks to really attack. And I thought, this could be quite fun again, quite exciting. And I think what's frustrating immediately is seeing that he's reverted to type, and it's effectively Maresca-able, isn't it? Bar a couple of small tweaks, it's a continuation of what we saw under Maresca. Now, what we don't know is if this is just a purely pragmatic move. He's not had more than a couple of days training in between games. He's probably desperate for a week off to properly, work with the team. He's not going to get that for ages, by the way. You look at the fixtures, it's mental. I don't think we're having a break midweek until the next international break in March. It's insane. So there might be an element of, let's just continue what we're doing, make some small tweaks, get the players playing with a bit more belief and spirit, which I think is maybe the one thing you could take from the 4 games, that the spirit does seem to be better. As Joe said, we've won 3 and 4. I mean, 2 of them are bankers, really, but just trying to get them going again. And then maybe the long-term plan is to bring in his own systems and ways of playing. But at the moment, it's not great. And particularly players like Malo Gusto, who was obviously back in that role at number 10 again yesterday, inverting, it just doesn't suit him at all. It's almost a waste of a player, isn't it? And yeah, none of us really want to see it. And it is that same old problem against teams with a really low block where you feel like those wingers struggle, not having players bombing on the outside of them as well. We were talking about this on our little WhatsApp group yesterday, and Roland and Declan made really good points, which is our wingers, people like Pedro Neto and Garnacho, are really good players on the counter when they've got space to run into. That's what they're all about. But with these teams with real low blocks, when you then don't give them the option of an overlapping fullback, whether that's to use as a decoy, which something Eden Hazard used to do all the time, didn't he? It would be like Aspilicueta or Alonso running down his left, and he'd kind of use them as a decoy and then cut inside. Whether it's to do that or to just to use them for an easy ball, I just feel like it makes it actually a lot harder for the types of wingers that we've got. And then you really do notice a difference when someone like Esteval comes in who doesn't need that, is happy just doing it by himself, and the magic starts to happen. So yeah, the style of football is the big one for me, and just kind of that feeling of even looking to the Palace game on Sunday and sort of not looking forward to the game as much as I'd like to, which again is sad. When it comes down to Sunday, I feel differently. I'll be looking forward to it as always because I just love watching my team play. But yeah, I want a bit of football. I want it to be fun. I think that's the thing for me. I'll also mention on Liam Delap, I think, because I am with Joe on this. He's been a real disappointment. We were quite forgiving, I think, early on because of his injuries and sort of giving him time to adapt. But what worries me is you're just seeing nothing. You're just seeing nothing. And I've always had this thing about strikers, which is I actually like it when they're missing chances. I don't mind Nicholas Jackson skying a couple over the bar because it means that actually he's getting in the position and one day they will go in for him. What worries me always with strikers if they're not getting chances. And with Delap, as Joe said, it just doesn't feel like he's in the game. He's not really giving us anything. And I really was very hopeful that he would give us a very different option to João Pedro. But at the moment, you're almost at the point where he's got a big second half of the season, or the best part of 3 or 4 months, to fix his Chelsea career. Or you're looking at the summer, and I think quite a few of us would be maybe looking to move him on, and you probably move him on at a profit, or certainly get your money back because he was so cheap. But whereas João Pedro, I think, has come in for some criticism from all of us, but has done enough at times, enough moments to say, yeah, there is a real player there. I don't think we've seen it with Delap yet, and that is really disappointing. He just looks really, really raw still, doesn't he? And bear in mind, we've got Amiga coming in from Strasbourg in the summer, who again, you've got to assume is going to be fairly raw in terms of his adaptation to the Premier League and all those kind of things. It just leaves you wondering where we're going to be. I mean, we got linked to Julian Alvarez a couple of days ago, and I got a bit excited, but as Joe said to me immediately, it was like, never going to happen. This is wishful thinking. But it is that sort of player, isn't it? Someone who could come in and immediately be the main man that Chelsea are seriously lacking right now. I wanted to pick up on the set piece thing as my second point, because actually, do you know what? I think I'm going to disagree with Joe and give Bueno Cueva a bit of credit. And I gave him stick last week on defensive set pieces because it is winding me up that we sort of forgotten what was working against Arsenal and those kind of things. But attacking wise, I think as Chelsea fans, we see every single one of them. So we're frustrated looking at it again, they're doing the same corner again. And when it goes wrong, it looks terrible. And it does look a little bit brain dead at times. But I wanted to take the point of looking at the numbers this morning. And you've got to judge him on the numbers. You have to judge like a set piece coach and how many goals you're scoring from set pieces. And Chelsea are second in the Premier League, behind, unsurprisingly, Arsenal, but second in the Premier League for set piece goals. And now that's a couple of important goals in the Champions League from set pieces. Obviously, big one yesterday. We also remember scored the first goal at Atalanta from a corner taken short. So whilst at times to the eye, it seems a bit one-dimensional and at times really frustrating, I've got to say the number of goals we've scored from set pieces this season has been very good. And add into the mix something I mentioned briefly in the last pod, which is a lack of height in the group. Chelsea are genuinely one of the smallest teams in the Premier League. So to get those numbers and be one of the smallest teams, I think is sort of doubly impressive. So credit where it's due, I think, to Cueva. again, watching it yesterday, don't get me wrong, I was with Joe going, oh my God, 15 corners. We've not looked like scoring from any of them. But ultimately, when you come out and you have scored from a corner, you've got to give credit to him. And I would say that part of our game has been good. I won't bore everyone with this because I don't know if everyone's that interested in it, but I did actually go down a rabbit hole and look at heights of centre midfielders, because I mentioned it, the fact that I felt that we were a little bit lacking in that area with the makeup of our current midfield, and looked into it. None of the guys are above 5'11" in height. So you've got, that's Lavia and Asugo, I think, are both 5'11". Enzo and Casado are 5'10". Now compare that with Arsenal, who are the dominant team right now. They've got 3 in Rice, Norgard and Marino, who are all 6'2", and they've got Zubamendi, who's 5'11". So they just dominate us in that area, and clearly built that team very, very deliberately to have height. And then you look at some of the other teams across the Premier League towards the top, and they may not have quite as many players as dominant as that, but they have at least 1 or 2. So if you're looking at like Slobozai at Liverpool, 6'2", Rodri at City, very similar. And when you go through them, everyone's got that dominant kind of figure in the midfield. I do think that Chelsea, it's an area that we've maybe not got the balance quite right for me. And you look at kind of being linked to someone like Anderson in the summer from Forest, if, for example, Enzo was to go. And he's, I think, 5'11" as well. So it doesn't really address it. And I just think there's one thing about building a squad of good players. That's clearly important. I think Chelsea have got a lot of good footballers, although some might frustrate us at times. But you also need the balance, right, of height, of age, like we talked about, of leadership and stuff. And I feel like they've forgotten the height bit of the makeup of that squad, because I did a list for Joe before the pod last week of players. We've only got like 8 players in our whole squad who are 6 foot or above. So you think about the fullbacks and other areas across the pitch. And bear in mind, I think 5 of those listed were centre-backs, of which only 2 are really ever likely to play at one time. And we do go on the pitch very often, much smaller than the opposition in the Premier League, as the current makeup of it is right now. So, yeah, I think it bears discussion, but I will give Bruno Cueva his flowers for goals from set pieces this season, although it hasn't always looked great on the eye. I'll admit that. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about is where it leaves us, obviously, in this Champions League. It is mad, actually, when you look at the table. It's so close. I incorrectly said before this game that I thought 16 points probably wouldn't be enough to get top 8. So top 8, obviously, is automatic qualification. Because of a couple of weird results over this week, like City losing and a couple of others, and Atalanta not, I think they lost as well. It does mean that 16 points will be enough. So, in theory, Chelsea can get 16 points. We can if we win in Napoli, which is no easy feat. What unfortunately we've done is we didn't score enough goals. So it's going to likely come down to goal difference, and not getting a couple more goals yesterday genuinely could be the difference. If we can win in Napoli, which would be absolutely gutting, to go and win in Napoli and still not get through to the next round on 16 points would be damning, really, and such a shame, because if just had got 1 or 2 more goals yesterday, I think it would have meant it was completely in our hands, really. That said, we have given ourselves a chance. If you look around us, there's PSG and Newcastle above us. They are both they play each other in the next round, so they can't both get to 16 points. A draw would obviously be brilliant for us. Spurs are above us. They've got a tricky game, I think, over in Frankfurt, and there are teams below us on goal difference who've got much more favourable home games that you'd expect them to win and maybe win comfortably. I'm looking at like Man City and Barcelona as 2 examples. Comfortable looking home games where if they can score 2 or 3 goals, they'll go above us on goal difference. So we've given ourselves a fighting chance. My gut feeling is it's going to be very tricky. The other thing that didn't help us, for those who haven't seen it, is that Napoli only drew against Copenhagen, which means that they are fighting to stay in the Champions League full stop. So whereas my hope was that they'd actually win that game, and effectively it would be a bit of a dead rubber for them, this last game against Chelsea, it's actually bang the opposite. They're one place outside of qualification, so they'll desperately be needing to win the game to even stay in the Champions League. So it's going to be a proper raucous Champions League night. And do you know what? Let's be positive. That's what we're here for. We're not here for dead rubbers. We're here to play big games. Away against Napoli, against Antonio Conte, look, McTominay, all of the rest. That's what we're in the Champions League for, isn't it? So, you know, if we don't get automatic qualification, it means that we've got another round and we're in a knockout stage either way. So, yeah, let's not be too damning on it. We're in the competition. That's the important thing. And yeah, big Champions League nights are what it's about. And I'm quite looking forward to getting back into the knockout stage because that's kind of when it comes alive, isn't it? I'll leave it there, I think. I'll hand back over to Joe. But yeah, not the most inspiring of nights. And yeah, we look forward to Palace on Sunday, which is, yeah, absolute must win, really, with how they are. But yeah, over to you, Joe.
As we move on to Palace at the weekend, I think it'll be a tough game. I said in my voice note yesterday, I think it's going to be a tough game. Palace are struggling. We know this. Their managers, making noises. Their players are leaving left, right and centre. Mateta's now come out and said that he wants to leave. So will he play at the weekend? Who knows? We're not too sure about that. But they've got good players. They've got Wharton, they've got Munoz at the back, they've got Lacroix, and Mark Gay has just left for Man City, which is a real shame for them. But they've got players all around the pitch. Obviously, Brennan Johnson, as we know, can score a goal. He scored plenty of goals at Tottenham, even though his performances maybe were the reason why he left. He can score a goal, and it wouldn't surprise me if someone like him turned up a notch for Crystal Palace. So we have to be very, very careful. And Chelsea, as we know, if Palace do decide to come and put a low block and 5 men behind the ball and then another 5 in front of them, then we aren't going to struggle. And Palace will be good enough to hit us on the break. And if Mateta does play, which you think he probably would, I mean, there's no reason why he shouldn't at the moment, unless he's put in a transfer request, and that's something different altogether. But Palace will make it very, very awkward. And if they get set pieces the other end, I'm far more likely to think that Palace will score a goal than we would. So I think the difference is that Palace will need 3 corners to score a goal. Chelsea will need 15. And that is my point with stats. They can be very, very twisted sometimes. And I think that if you're good at something, like the lower league teams are, you tend to stick to what you're good at. Burnley won't score many goals this season, probably from open play, but when they get a corner or a set piece outside the box, you feel that they're probably going to be quite dangerous. The same for the likes of Everton and Sunderland and these types of teams. They are more used to doing it, and because they haven't got as good of football players, they look for every edge there. That's an edge, not moving the ball 1 inch on a corner spot. I expect Rosinia to mix his team up. Will Cobb, Palmer play? I'm not too sure. I think he might miss out again unless they purely just rested him last night for precautionary measures so he's fit for the weekend. Would make sense, but he's definitely carried an injury. He's not himself. He's not 100%. I've said on the pod of the last two episodes, I think he's not playing well when he owes us a performance. Then, well, maybe it's because he's not quite right. And there's a difference between injured and out of form. And I think maybe with him, both are true at the same time, but equally, when you're fully fit and you can do whatever you like, I think his form will come back. But at the moment, he's struggling. But yeah, will he play? You want your best players to play, and we want our best players to play, don't we? And I think Cole Palmer is certainly up there in that stake, even though he's not 100% fit. You'd like to think that João Pedro comes back into the side, even though he's not been fantastic, as Chris just mentioned previously. He's way more effective than Liam Delap at the moment. He is just woefully out of form and hasn't actually shown any sign of form for Chelsea so far this season, if I'm being brutally honest. As for some of the other players, I think we expect to see Rob Sanchez come back into the side. That's a no-brainer, particularly as Jorgensen got injured last night. I would expect Reece to play because he came off at half-time yesterday, although I think the jury is out on him because he had a very poor match against Brentford, where he was ill. In hindsight, after I found out, I gave him the sort of benefit of the doubt, but I thought last night he was way off it again. He was pretty average. And I think we want him to play, don't we? Fingers crossed he's over the worst of it and he can come back into the side. I think we expect to see Kukurea. Again, Hato did more than enough last night to kind of get another game, I would suggest, but I think they might save him for potentially someone like Wolves. and Burnley, who are on the horizon. I expect to see some game time for him there. But I think Cucurella comes back into the side this time round. I think if Axel Disasi starts at centre-back, and the reason I say that is because Liam Rosini has obviously this week said that everybody gets a fair crack and he can now come back into the squad and we can see what he has. But I think that if that was to happen, I might just go and take myself to the national grid and plug my testicles in there and just turn it on and have done with it. Because if I see Disasi play for this football team again, I don't know what I'm going to do, quite frankly. I think in the centre of defence, the likelihood is it's going to be Trev and probably Badiashile, based on just a left-sided and a right-sided player. But I think we'd like to see Acheampong come in there and play, and Trev go to the left-hand side and Josh to the right. But I think it will be a back four of Sanchez, Cucurella, Badiashile, Trev and James. In the midfield, I think we would like to see a little bit more of Andre Santos. I think Chris and I would both like to see a little bit more of him. He's, again, didn't get on last night, which would give Enzo a bit of a rest. And I think we see Caicedo and Santos in the 2, alongside probably Palmer in the 10 if he's fit and ready to go. If he's not, that'll be Enzo probably. And then on the wide areas, I think I would like to see Garnacho and Estevao and Neto drop to the bench with, say, João Pedro up front. That's what I would go for. I mean, I'd actually quite like to see a back 3. I'd like to see a change formation, or if it's not a back 3, a different version of what we're currently playing, because it does feel very Maresca-able, as Chris mentioned in his voice note just before me there. But I'm just sort of guessing as to what Chelsea will probably do, and that's what I'd like to see. I think Enzo does need a bit of a rest from time to time, and Santos is more than capable of covering the Enzo role, particularly in a 2. And there's enough goals on the field in theory with João Pedro, Cole Palmer, Garnacho and Estevao to kind of get the game done. I think Chelsea have to win games of football. Chris sort of said to me, is it performances over wins? Is it wins over performances? Ultimately, it's wins over performances, right? It has to be, because we're in a results business and it'd be stupid to say otherwise. But the two can be true at the same time, and Chelsea do need a performance. I mean, how many people can sit and watch a performance like Brentford and think that we're going to get the same result every single time? This is my point, is that it's all very well saying, let's go and beat Brentford 2-0, let's go and beat Palace 2-0, let's go and beat Burnley 2-0. If that was the case, we'd be we'd league champions. But the trouble is, if you play that poorly, you will get beat and you'll give up chances. That is kind of where the two come hand in hand. And you can't just say every single week, oh, we played crap, but we won. It won't happen every week. It just won't. You have to give some kind of baseline of performance. And at the moment, we don't have any control, particularly in home games. Our home games are actually quite drastic in terms of other teams coming to the breach and just basically putting their stamp all over us and running all over us. Take Brighton, dominated us. Bournemouth, dominated us. Brentford, dominated us. And I could go on and on that list, and believe me, you could probably name a lot of sides and I would probably say, yeah, they dominated us, but maybe we got a result or maybe we got a draw out of it. And Chelsea's home form needs to change. If we're going to have any hope of qualifying in the top 4, which I think is going to be a real long shot the way we're playing, then they have to win against Palace and Wolves and Burnley. They can't afford to drop points. We've got Leeds coming up as well. That's a home game soon. We owe them one from the poor performance we gave against them at Ellen Road a few weeks ago when Tosin and Sanchez had a nightmare. But yeah, these are very winnable games on paper. But as we know, we've said this before, Chris and I have done a quiz before. I think it was like just before Christmas about how many games we win or lose. And we never said that Chelsea would win all those matches like some mad people would do. We were quite fair. We said we would lose a few. We might draw a couple here and there. But in actual fact, it was way worse. And we lost many more games than we thought we would. So these 4 games coming up in the league, they look very easy on paper, but I can guarantee you they won't be. But there's no reason why Chelsea, if they put any kind of performance together and find some form, they could win all of them. But equally, if they only win 1 and draw 2 or something, that's going to put them way behind the 8 ball going into the final and latter stages of the season against some of the better sides. So, yeah, I think this is quite a critical few games for Chelsea. But as we've said before, they're playing a lot of football and they've got a lot of games coming up. So expect to be tripped up somewhere where you're not expecting it. I think my expectations on the team have been checked of late, certainly knocked. And I think my expectations, like I say, have certainly thinned. I would consider winning any kind of trophy, whether it's the League Cup, FA Cup. I don't expect us to win the Champions League in all fairness, as a bonus. And I think if we can finish I would, we're hoping here that the European places end up going down to fifth position, and I think fifth is probably about as high as we can go. I think that Villa will probably, unless they have a real bad run of form, I think they'll probably end up in the fourth position. I probably expect Liverpool to finish third now, and I think that Chelsea might squeak fifth, but I think there's obviously a lot of competition for those places too, with Man United and one or two other sides. But I think if Liam Rosenior could finish fifth, and that was a Champions League place, and somehow maybe knock off Arsenal at the Emirates for a League Cup trophy win, or certainly go the distance in the FA Cup, then that would, for how we've been during this period of November, December and January, I think that would be a fairly successful season for him. But once again, it feels like we're starting from scratch. So yeah, definitely a bit dented of late. But whatever happens, we're always Chelsea, we're always blue. And for God's sake, I'm always optimistic. Come on, Chelsea.
I've mentioned quite a few times on the podcast that I know a lot of Crystal Palace fans. That's kind of what happens when you go to a school in Croydon, which is not far from Palace. We even had Palace train at our school once back in the mid-90s. A certain Mikel Forcell, for those who remember him, was on loan at Palace at the time and was a lovely guy. I thought I'd bring them in. I've got two very good friends, both called Mark, who can give us a bit of insight on Palace. I asked them to tell us both why Palace are where they are this season. There's been so much turmoil, and obviously they're on a terrible run themselves. So kind of what has led them to this point, and then what can we expect from Palace on Sunday. So yeah, over to the two Marks to give us their view on Palace.
Hi guys, thanks for having me back on the podcast to talk Palace. You'll be well aware of some of the issues going on with us at the moment. Obviously Gay's gone, Glasner's going, Mateta might be going. In terms of our form, I mean, we haven't won in 10 since start of December and dropped to 14th at time of recording. So yeah, not great. The main issue is, I mean, it's the overload of fixtures. We weren't prepared like so many teams before us. Didn't have a big enough squad, but we didn't have the players in the positions. Munoz has been the killer for us, really. His long absence is no coincidence that we haven't won while he's been out. You know, the way we play is kind of very patient on the ball, knock it around the back, play in midfield. We don't really have goal-scoring midfielders. They just move the ball. So all our threat comes, and this will hopefully come through on Sunday and be relevant. All our threat really comes from overlapping fullbacks and then moving the ball quickly, and the front three being moving around a lot, filling those pockets. Our 2-10s tuck inside and just buzz around Mateta really and kind of cause problems. So Munoz is potentially back this weekend. Sarr is back from AFCON. Hopefully they'll make the difference. It could change things around for us. It's going to be a very weird atmosphere. First home game post Gay's absence, post Glasner's announcement, post Mateta saying he wants to leave. But then Munoz and Sarr returning could give us a little bit of the boost we really need. I think, in truth, I don't know where our next win is coming from, but that's football. Win this and suddenly we're flying again and everyone's happy and joys of joys. But it's going to be a tough game. We need the ball to bounce in off someone's backside, a bit of luck to go our way, and just turn things around, turn the mood around, and hopefully Sunday is it. But I look forward to it. I hope it's a good game, and I hope we beat you. Cheers, guys.
In terms of Glasner, look, he's been our best ever manager. He's won us the FA Cup. He's a legend, and he always will be. But the way he's handled himself in the last couple of weeks, particularly in relation to this, being abandoned, I think he's got a lot of people's backs up, particularly the fans. And I think, there'll be some fans that back him, but I think on the weekend you might see some frustration aimed at Glasner. Has he got a point? Yeah, I think it's fair to say we didn't have the great summer transfer window when we were one or two players short, but we just paid 35 million for Brennan Johnson. The squad isn't that bad. We're a couple of players short. He can be disappointed about that, but no way near the realms of saying like we've been abandoned. And you also have to look at the context. This ownership led by Steve Parish took over in 2010. We were always getting relegated from the Championship. We're now a solid Premier League. We're rebuilding a stand in the stadium. We've rebuilt our youth facilities, which are like second to none. So you can show some dissatisfaction, but this thing about being abandoned by the owners, it's just not going to wash with the Palace fans, or with the vast majority of them anyway. And on top of that, JP Mateta has now honestly broken my heart by saying he wants to leave because we love him. He's been such a great character for us. So what's that going to mean for the weekend? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be chaotic. Will the team be galvanised? Will they be deflated? It's going to be a fascinating atmosphere.
Thank you very much for that, gents. You can kind of hear it in their voices, can't you, that they don't know what to expect on Sunday, and I think we probably don't either. I was looking at things this morning and thinking that there's 16 games left of the Premier League season as we stand, and we genuinely don't know what this season is going to end up looking like. I think all of us as Chelsea fans are probably a little bit flat. We had high hopes going into it, thinking we're going to close the gap on the league leaders, maybe even mount a challenge ourselves for the most optimistic of Chelsea fans. You remember that poll went out at the start of the season of optimism across fans. I think Chelsea was the top of it. That's how we all felt coming into the season. I think us and Arsenal were probably really hopeful. As it stands, with 16 points behind Arsenal, we're miles away from where we hope to be. Currently sixth in the league. As Joe said, it's going to be very tight to get Champions League, and we could finish anywhere in the league, I think, from 4th down to 14th. You know, that's really how tight it is, and the next 16 games will be massive. And then we're in every competition still as well. Obviously, still in the game against Arsenal, still in the FA Cup, still in the Champions League. This season could go any which way, and it's really, really hard to kind of at this point know how we're going to feel at the end. I talked about Delap earlier and kind of where his season's going to end out, and I think you could sort of say it across the whole club and across a lot of the players. It's a massive few months for us, and obviously massive for Liam Rosenior as well. So yeah, it is a strange time, and kind of reflecting on doing this note was thinking Liam Rosenior's won 3 of his first 4 games, and he would probably snapped your hand off and said, if that had happened, yeah, you're going to lose one, but it's the one that's over 2 legs and you're still in the game. He would have probably taken it, but it just feels a bit flat, doesn't it, right now? So, yeah, results are everything. Big game against Palace. It was against Palace, I think 2 years ago, under Pochettino, that Chelsea were 1-0 down at half-time. There's a delay in kickoff, and the Chelsea fans were singing 3 Little Birds and that little ditty that every little thing was going to be all right. I still think that we should sing that song a lot more. As you can probably tell in the pod, we do like that message, but it feels very poignant for Chelsea. It always has done. I was there in Munich in 2012 when we were singing it, when it, against all odds, we somehow won the Champions League for the first time. I wonder if the fans might be singing it on Sunday, and let's hope that, like on that day, every little thing was all right. See you next time.